Hi, welcome to the Spirit Show. I'm Spirit. How are you doing? So, I want to say thank you to everyone who watched the last episode. I appreciate everyone that interacts and, leaves a like, leaves a comment. Love it. Anyway, I wanted to go ahead and preface this. I'm coming out with two episodes this week, or I guess Thursday. Um, One that's a little bit more fun, and then one that's a little bit more serious. But today, or at least for now, we're going to focus on the one that's a little bit more serious because I'm really passionate about this one. So, the main thing that it's about would be honestly, it'd be about work, it'd be about jobs, it'd be about social media. Um, and I know it's kind of ironic for me to say all of that given um, me doing YouTube. However, I really don't consider YouTube to be social media in the same way as like Instagram or Twitter. And it's come to my like attention and like realization recently that I'm not really interested in being on Twitter, being on Instagram. And to a certain degree that does kind of impact like what my own ability to get a job and to earn a living. Um Especially when we're thinking about more like remote work and things of that nature, right? Um I don't know. I couldn't really say why or for what reason outside of I just don't care. Like at some point, at some degree, to some extent, I just stopped caring about being on social media in the way that like most people are. And that's not to say anything negative about everyone else. It has nothing to do with them. It's only me. But it kind of goes into a greater theme of detachment and just like a lack of care that I have with like social media and then jobs as a whole. Because there are a lot of jobs that I have maybe the skills and maybe the ability to do, but I do not have the actual care to make um, good work in that position, regardless of what it is. And I've honestly tried. I've tried forcing myself. I've tried to just apply online and go through the job boards and look at job sites and all this other stuff, and it infuriates me. And not like on some crazy stuff where I have, anger issues or anything like that, but more so in the way by which I just can't bring myself to care. I can't bring myself to find the professionalism and anything of that nature. And the best example of this is I think it's what is it called? It's like Cover or something. It's like this online freelancing site that helps you find positions in work and things of that nature. And that's really good. Like that's great. But the issue with that is that I don't care. And even within like, finding certain jobs or finding certain listings that I found were interesting, it really wasn't until I got to like the sign on portion of that website where I was just like, I can't do this. I cannot do this. And it's because it was wanting not only like my LinkedIn, but it also wanted like an Instagram or a Twitter. And for most people, that wouldn't be a big deal. And I'm not saying that it should be or it is. But for me, I was just like, I already don't want to be on this shit anyway. I already don't want to do Instagram. I already don't want to be on Twitter. I haven't even used Instagram in over like 2 years, a year. Like it's been a very long time since I was like, let me get on Instagram and do X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean? So much so to where it's to a certain degree, I don't say impacted my friendships and in relationships, but it's definitely changed the way in which people interacted with me for sure. Like a lot of my friends, um, have expressed how I don't want to say irritating, but sad it is not being able to like send me things on Instagram. And it's like you have my number, babes. Like you whatever you want to send me, whatever you want me to see, like I'm sure you can go ahead and do so. Through my number. You can FaceTime me. Like the relationship we have with one another is so much more personal than what is on social media and what is on like Instagram or Twitter or anything of that nature, to where I can't force myself to like it. I can't. I've tried. And I'd like to say that like, oh, it messes with my anxiety or it makes me, this way or that way or anything of this nature, but I just can't care. Like it's a greater theme, a greater level of like detachment that I don't think a lot of people really can relate to unless they've also been through it themselves. And so for me, honestly, I would say that the main issue or the main problem is that like I'm in a position where if it's not truly lighting me up inside, it's not fulfilling, I can't care. I can't even force myself to do it because I'm going to get irritated. I'm going to, you know what I mean, want to cut corners and half-ass stuff. And that's not how things should be when you actually care about it and you want to do good work. And the thing, and I, that's me. I always want to do good work. I love quality, other people's quality as well as my own quality and what I can give. Now I know that's funny to say because I barely be editing on this motherfucker. But to be fair, I'm only like 4 videos in deep, maybe 5. You know what I mean? We're just getting started. I'm still trying to learn the processes of things. But even within saying that, I really do try to provide the best level of quality that I can, which is another reason why I don't really write scripts for a lot of my videos because I'm not going to follow it. I'm going to go off the script and get lost at some point, which is why for most of my things, most of my recordings, my filmings, I re-film everything from scratch, or I literally just go completely candid, off the cuff, like just wing it. And I don't want to say wing it, but you know what I'm trying to convey. And, it was really difficult for me to kind of get to this level of acceptance, this level of awareness within myself because, especially not really having stability or money in that way or anything of that nature, it's really easy to be like, okay, I need to do this and I need to get money. I need to get this position. You know what I mean? Like, what can I do? And I found myself getting into a mindset by which I was willing to work a position that I knew I didn't like, or at least I knew I didn't want to do. Like, for example, social media managing. For at least like 3 years, I aided with my last company doing social media, helping them with a lot of stuff. Now, I'm not going to act like I was the manager and I was in charge of it and I was, what I mean, the head honcho when it came to posting and engagement and things of that nature. But for the most part, I definitely did have a hand in a good amount of like social media things, whether that just meant like I was behind the scenes and, helping kind of direct how the photo shoot was going to go, what elements and props we needed to use, how they could look, how to manipulate and play with them, or even actively being a part of a photo shoot and being, a model for it, whether it was my hands or my face or just like the way in which I was dressed for the day. It's something that I'm interested in for sure, but it's not anything that I could go out and force myself to do through a job site or a job board or looking meticulously on Google or Indeed or anything of that nature. And, my level of just like, I guess, detachment for both social media also is somewhat similar to the detachment that I have when it comes to traditional jobs and work and trying to get, a position. Um, and it got to a point where even like today, this all happened today as I'm filming it, March 19th. Um, where I had to ask myself, like, what is it that you want to do? Like, do you truly want to do this or do you just want the money? Do you truly want to do this or do you just like the title? Do you truly want to do this or does this sound nice? Does this sound like something that you should do? And that's when I really was able to admit and be honest and open and say, I don't want to do this. What I want to do and what I find the most fulfilling, what I find the most motivating and just keeps my wheels and gears turning is doing YouTube broadcasting. You know what I mean? Maybe instead of just doing videos once a week, pick up streaming too. You know what I mean? Things of that nature by which I'm not only but like relying on one thing, right? Or I'm not only fulfilling myself by doing one thing. Or on the opposite end, I'm basically allowing myself to be unfulfilled by doing stuff that I know I don't like. Stuff I know I don't care about. No, you know what I mean? Things that don't provide stimulation or burn me out in a way by which, I am less of myself whenever I'm off the schedule, off the shift. And I know a lot of people, you know what I mean, would probably watch this or hear my sentiment and say, well, that's just how being adult is and that's just how, life is supposed to go. But at the same time, at least to me, one part about being an adult is making good decisions and making good choices. And I don't know, I'd much rather choose, even if it's a harder, more difficult, more like, long term, long game sort of path to go the route, make the decision, pick the choice that leads towards fulfillment. 100%. And I understand that, for a lot of people, that's not always the case. They either don't necessarily have the awareness or discernment to know what is fulfilling for them or what would be fulfilling for them, or on the opposite end, they don't know how to go about that fulfillment, or they just can't, right? Because of their, life situation, their current circumstances, and where they find themselves to be, either just because of what, living in capitalism does in general, or, certain previous and old decisions that they've made in the past that they're still trying to fix or like break themselves out of, right? So I'm not saying this to say that like everyone should be like me and everyone should think and move like me. I wish people could. I do. But at the same time, I'm starting to realize and understand that a lot of what and who I am is forever unconventional, and it's never going to be, um, you know, similar to the way in which a lot of other people do things or move, like social media, right? Even before this realization, I can't say that like I was the most interactive and engaged person on Instagram or Twitter, or you know what I mean. I have this fan page, or not fan page, but like this Finsta and this and that and that and that. I didn't care. Excuse me. Outside of having my friends that I can see and talk to and things of that nature, I really didn't care about social media. And even now, being out of high school, I think it's a lot easier for me to think about, how I was before joining any account or any site, any platform. Um, and how, for the most part, I really only did it for a connection to the people around me at school or in my community, versus wanting to know everything that's going on in the world and being a part of all these different niche communities and things of that nature. I don't want to, and I think it's a good but bad thing given the kind of nature that we are in, where a lot of things are benefited, discovered, found, and even, marketed through social media, right? Like a lot of people are able to find or build their own careers within, 6 months because of what they post or how they interact on social media. And that is so great. I'm happy that people are able to find something that works for them, but social media doesn't work for me. I don't care. You know what I mean? And when it comes to YouTube or even TikTok, right? I find it to be a little bit different because I'm not focused on, how many likes did I get and who's following me and how many retweets am I going to get and things of that nature. Granted, that is still a part of what TikTok is, but, let's just keep it a buck. People aren't going onto TikTok to like give off their funniest one-liners in the same way they do on Twitter, or like, they're going out of their way to post the most aesthetically pleasing video like they would on Instagram. There are people that do that on TikTok, but the vast majority are people that literally are just posting what is funny to them, what is interesting, what is, you know fulfilling in a way. um so much so that I just can't really see TikTok to be the same way as like Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or Snapchat, where the main basis of those platforms is interacting with someone socially of some type. A lot of the interaction that you have with TikTok and on TikTok, in my opinion, is just through responses and comments and people sharing, how a video or whatever else they see made them feel or whatever. Like it's not in the same, sphere as what I kind of considered all the other ones or the more traditional ones to be. And even with YouTube, I consider it to be more of a broadcasting service at this point. Like it's transcended itself beyond just being a social media network and just being purely online. I mean, honestly, the indie animation space is a really good example of that. I don't know of too many indie projects that truly can like live and thrive and succeed on Twitter or on Instagram. Maybe fandoms, communities, but not like a whole form of entertainment. And, you know, at first I think it was really sad. I was, because I wanted to move or maneuver in the same way that other people were, and conduct myself how, everyone else is, to just do this one thing, or turn left, turn right, and move like everyone else I see around me. But I'm starting to understand and accept more so that even if I did, even if I found, a break, I got the position, I was able to get that check, um, I would have still felt unfulfilled. I would have still felt, um, to a certain degree, less than, in the sense of, you know, not really being motivated, right? Like just going through the motions. And for a lot of people, that works. And for a long, long time, I definitely wanted to be one of the people that just like going through the motions, clocking in and clocking out would work for, but it just doesn't. It does. And I don't know why. You know what I mean? I kind of do. I really don't like being told what to do. Like, to a certain degree, I do see myself as like my own authority, somewhat, a little bit, but like not by which I'm defiant or unable to be a team player, but more so in the sense that it's hard for me to follow rules that don't make sense. It is. You know what I mean? Not to say like every rule has to make sense to me, but like, if you know what I mean, you're telling me something that is like logically incorrect or logically makes no sense, it's hard for me not to question it, or at least come to you, what I mean, person to person, and be like, hey, so what is this about? And a lot of people don't like that. They don't. And I get that. It's okay. But that's not to say that I don't want to work for people, or I don't want to, work on a team or be a part of a group or collaborate on a project. I love animation. That's what I want to do. And, you know what I mean? Write for animation. So that's not the issue. The issue more so is the simple fact that I don't follow orders. Like, I'm not a soldier. Like, I'm not, as much as I may not come off of it, or seem as that to a lot of people, I am fairly independent. I am, you know what I mean? And not just independent, but like an individual, and willing to, embrace my individuality despite whatever, or, what I mean, with the consequence that it may come with. That's okay, you know? Um, but I do want to definitely talk about how I think it's frustrating, to find jobs and find work when you don't want to be on social media, when you don't want to post or tweet every day. And I know how simple or maybe even easy that does sound to a lot of other people, but to me that just sounds so needless, cuz I don't even have anything to say like that or post that frequently, to where I feel like it actually is doing something and pushing the needle, and it has substance. And I think that's why I found things like copywriting, or like UGC, or like a lot of other of, freelance remote sort of working styles to be so restrictive for me. And it's because, not just, oh, there's so much stuff you have to do on like the front end before it actually pays off, because that's just life. That's just life. But it's the way in which you kind of have to go about it now. I I couldn't come up with something to post every day about copywriting to save my life. I couldn't. I was only doing that for the check. And once I kind of got over the mentality of like, I'm going to do this for the check, I'm going to just do this for money, because that's what I was doing working in the food industry, it was a lot easier for me to move in a more authentic light. And I think, you know what I mean? I don't want to advertise, I don't want to tell other people what to do, but I definitely will say this. I do think that the more you are able to kind of understand and learn about yourself as an individual, and like what lights you up, whether you're going back to like the childlike childhood, younger version of you, um, or just, thinking about your hobbies and what hobbies you really love, or are really passionate about, that you would want to do all day. It becomes a lot easier to move or maneuver towards a more authentic version of yourself, or a more authentic version of what you want to do, right? Um, but I don't know. It's really interesting to me how frustrating I got, and or found it to be, or not found it to be, but I felt as though it was to do a lot of the, I guess, new stuff and working habits that I wanted, and thought I should do in order to sustain myself. Whereas I find so much joy just posting to YouTube. Mind you, I don't even have, followers or subscribers or people really watching, but the simple fact that like I'm able to do this provides me so much more fulfillment and like just like energy for the next day than clocking in at like a restaurant or figuring out how to do copywriting, doing a whole photo shoot for like UGC, all that type of stuff. Anyone that's in it and finds success and happiness, fulfillment, and feels energized doing that things, don't stop. That is what you that is your thing. That is your gig. That is your, you know what I mean, your call. I don't want to say your calling, but that's your yum. And I'm not trying to yuck on that. I'm not trying to yuck on nobody's yum. But at the same time, I and I do feel like this goes for a lot of other people too. I'm learning that I got to move differently. I'm learning that I don't run in the same circles as everyone else does. And not to say like I'm better, I'm, you know what I mean, or anything of this nature. I'm not better. I don't feel like I'm, better and everyone is lower than me, because if that's the case, I wouldn't be broke right now. I wouldn't, be concerned about what I'm gonna do for money or what I'm gonna do for food or groceries or things of that nature. I wouldn't be concerned about that. Um, but I do definitely think that to a certain degree, when you decide to move in a more authentic light and you make those sacrifices, because there are some, there are positions you turn down, there are friends you stop hanging out with, there are activities you stop doing or you do less of. Um, Over time, in the long run, you end up being in a better position than where you were, before you made those sacrifices, as well as after making those sacrifices. To where you can't even think about going back to what was, your old reality. And so I don't want this video to get too long. Plus I am filming another one right after this one. So I'm going to end it here. Everyone that is watching, I do want to say thank you. I appreciate all that, you're able to stay for, if you do stay for the whole thing. And yeah, I hope you guys have a nice day. Bye.